How would you say that you get treated by locals in the Philippines?
The Philippines are a super kind, super welcoming, super warm country. But obviously, as every country does, there are ups and downs. Here in the Philippines, sometimes when I'm like walking on the street, I'm like maybe in a bad mood, let's say, on a certain day. Things that just like trigger you.
Yeah.
Like when people call me Justin Bieber, like
Really?
every time I will walk into a cafe and they'll turn on Justin Bieber music.
Have you had any negative experiences with the locals here?
You experience negative interactions everywhere in the world. I recently did a video in Quiapo market and there was one individual that was like where we were all from, and I said, oh, I'm from Germany. He started Hitler saluting me. Well, that's different.
Connection.
What's up, Savvy Expats? Today I have a special podcast sit down with the man, Tim. So glad to have you on, Tim. Quick introduction to Tim. He is a model currently based in the Philippines. He's modeled for notable brands such as Bench, Samsung, Armani, and recently Regatta, correct?
Yeah.
Regatta. And originally how I met Tim is he has over 35,000 subscribers, and the BGC vlogging space is very tight niched. So when I saw you're quickly rising up, I said, your competition. Kidding you. So
classic.
You're quickly taking over the vlogging space here, I'd say Manila.
Let's see.
Growing a lot. And 35,000 subscribers, not a small number. And you're also a world traveler. So
yeah, it's true.
It's certainly a pleasure to have you on, Tim.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, of course. So let's start with the question of where are you from?
Short form or long answer?
Long answer.
Okay, so I was born in Germany in a small town next to Frankfurt. Lived there for 9 years, and then my family and we moved to Milan. So I was like kind of away from home, like right from the start in a way. And then after 7 years living in Italy, we then moved to the Philippines. And I lived here for 2 years then. Then I went to England. I lived there for 4 years on off, kind of, like because of COVID, I had to go travel back home to Germany. Then I went to Korea for a bit, and I kind of just went back and forth. So
no kidding.
That's where I'm from, but in short, it's a small town in Germany.
Right. So you're by heritage, by blood, you're German.
Yeah, full
and you're from Germany, but a lot of your time was spent around the globe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
What I'm actually interested about is that you said you were 7 years in Milan, but then you spent 2 years in the Philippines. Can you explain like why you came to the Philippines? But really quick, if you need the next clear-cut action steps to navigate life moving to the Philippines, feel free to check out our free 15-step checklist in the link in the description down below. All the resources that you need for moving to the Philippines and being a successful retired expat here is in that document down below. So check it out, and cheers from BGC.
Back then I was just, my whole family was just traveling all because of my dad's job. So basically when we were still living in Germany, my mom and my dad, they built a house in this small hometown. And then at some point my mom was like, this can't be it, you know. She looked at the older generations in our village and she was like, no, I don't want to be settled yet, you know, because both my parents were traveling a lot when they were like younger. So they were kind of not satisfied with having lived already, kind of. So they were like, okay, let's do this. They asked my brother and I actually, would you be fine with moving? And both of us were like, yeah, sure. Like, apparently I said, as long as there are forests, I'm fine with anything. Because I was like 8 years old, so I didn't have my priorities quite sorted yet. And then, yeah, we moved to Milan for 7 years, and then Philippines for my dad's job again.
Interesting, and that was at a very young age, I'm assuming?
So I moved to Milan at 9, and then to the Philippines at 16. At
16?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd imagine 7 years in Milan, that's no short period of time, going from like Europe straight into the Philippines. What was that transition like for you at the time?
To be honest, it was all right for me because we'd been to Southeast Asia, to Asia in general. We traveled quite a lot. my grandparents were actually staying in Thailand basically every winter. So sometimes we would go visit them for Christmas and then spend kind of New Year's and Christmas in Thailand. So I was kind of used to being in Asia and being in Southeast Asia. But of course, it's a different thing when you actually live here and you kind of experience the daily life of the country. It's always a very different thing, visiting and living somewhere. So
absolutely,
it was
100%.
Obviously still a little bit of a transition phase.
Right. Did you experience any like sort of culture shocks when transitioning to the Philippines at 16?
So initially, when we found out that Philippines was an option, my dad got the phone call and told my mom, and apparently they had only one day to decide whether or not they would take the role in the Philippines. And
one day?
Yeah. So,
that's insane.
So they called him and they were like, hey, this new position in the Philippines just opened up. Would you be interested? And he was like, well, actually, I need to talk to my wife. Like, let me discuss it with her. And they were like, oh yeah, no worries. Don't like take your time, you know.
Take your time.
And then they were like, but we would like an answer tomorrow.
Take your time, but yeah, just figure out if you're gonna move your kids and
yeah, exactly.
your whole family down to the Philippines.
And then, and at the time that was like maybe 6 months, 7 months after we were supposed to move to Mexico.
Okay.
So there was a whole move that was supposed to happen. And then it didn't, like they canceled it all 2 weeks before we were supposed to move to the Philippines, to Mexico. My dad was already there. Everything was already on the way there. And so we were just sleeping on mattresses in Milan.
Wow.
And then at some point they canceled it all and said, nope, no move, because there was a big merger happening with the company. And so they brought everyone back. And so my dad and my mom, they had this new opportunity like a few months later. So my brother and I, we had just settled back in, you know, into our life. And then the Philippines came along and they were like, oh, would you guys be all right with that? Well, they had already made the decision, but they still asked us, you know, and we were like Googling it. I didn't really even search up Manila.
Right.
I just searched Philippines. So when I then came here, I had only seen photos of ISM.
Okay.
And just generally what you see when you Google Philippines, which is like the beaches, Boracay, white sand, blue water.
Right.
And in my mind, it was like pretty cool, you know. I thought there would be like some kind of beach in Manila as well, where you can like swim, surf, which obviously isn't the case, sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, I'd say, something that was different than I imagined.
Wow. So when you were first thinking about, or your family was first telling you about the plan to move to the Philippines, you saw beaches and ISM.
Exactly.
So speaking of ISM, you actually went to school here in the Philippines, right? Can you explain a little bit about your experience going to ISM? For full disclosure, guys, ISM is an international school, probably the top-ranked international school in the country.
Yeah, I think so.
You know,
Probably.
people from all over the world go to ISM here in BGC. So how was your experience being there for about 2 years?
Pretty good. I enjoyed my time there. Like, obviously ups and downs in high school, you know. It's just the way it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Like when I first moved here, I actually didn't like the Philippines. I didn't have a good time. It wasn't really the fault of the Philippines. Yeah. Any place wouldn't have been for me at that time because I had to leave my life behind. I was 16. I had a girlfriend in Italy at that time, and then a big friend group, my football team, everything was kind of set up, and then I was just kind of ripped out of it. And so that's why I didn't really like the Philippines, because it for me meant having to leave all the stuff that I'd built up behind. So the first few months I was actually not really living here yet. Like, I was still in Italy with my head.
Mentally,
I was like calling my ex-girlfriend like every day, like talking to my friends from there, and not really settling here yet. So first few months were like difficult at ISM as well. And then slowly it started getting better until I started modeling.
Okay.
And then that was like a whole new thing where like the friend group that I had at the time, they didn't like this. They were like kind of, I don't know what was their problem, to be honest. Like maybe they were jealous, or I don't know. But basically they stopped talking to me.
Wow.
And it's like every time I would sit down, everyone would stop talking. And then
Really?
like a minute later or something, they would all leave and I would be there by myself eating my lunch and stuff. And it was like the classic high school
experience
thing that everyone goes through kind of. That was like also my experience at ISM. But the school itself is really cool, like I must say. The tournaments for sports and the opportunities that it opens up for you are like immense.
Right, right. And I gotta say, like, something I really relate to you on is how you didn't like the first year or so of your life in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's the same case with me. Like, it wasn't that I didn't like the Philippines, it's more so like that massive transition. And I think it's because both of us moved to a completely new country, completely new lifestyle at a young age. And so that's like something definitely I think a lot of people bringing their families have to keep in mind, is that it's a huge transition for the kids.
I mean, for me, it wasn't so much the Philippines. The Philippines were always great. Like my initial time here was also great. It's just that I was like not really mentally here. So I didn't want to make new friends. I didn't want to like like the country even, you know? And it's like, of course, then you're more prone to disliking things and not enjoying your time if you're trying not to.
Of course, you know, you have closed mind to the country.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we pretty much already broke it down and talked about it, but can you speak a little bit more on what you do for work here in the Philippines?
So at the moment I'm doing mainly YouTube. That's my big focus at the moment because that's the thing I'm passionate about, and it's going pretty well now, I think.
And 200K in the last video.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's but it's always coming in, like it comes in waves all the time. So social media is just like that. But yeah, and on the side I'm also modeling. That's something I started when I was here in 2018, or I started actually in 2019. No, I didn't. 2018. Okay.
2018.
So I started in 2018. Then I went to uni. I didn't really model there. Then
uni
in England.
In England.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Korea for modeling for 3 months. And then after that, yeah, now here.
Okay. Okay. So you basically were in the Philippines in 2018 till 2020.
Till 2019.
Till 2019.
Yeah.
And then you left the country to go to uni and model. Uni in England, model in Korea.
Yep.
And then at what day or year did you come back to the Philippines again?
So I came back, I think like 1.5 years ago now.
Okay.
And then I stayed here for 6 months, left back to uni because I had 1 more year.
Oh, okay.
And they actually, so for that 6 months, I was on a placement year. So for the university, they allow you to go to other countries and kind of experience working there. So I was on a professional placement year from the uni, and I chose Korea and the Philippines so that I could conveniently model whilst working. It was quite a good combo so that I could get the best of both. And then, yeah, I obviously had to go back, finish my degree because otherwise the last 3 years were a waste of time. But yeah.
And so now living in the Philippines, where in the country are you staying?
In BGC.
In BGC.
Yeah.
How do you like living in BGC?
I mean, obviously in Manila you have that kind of more stressful and high pressure in a way life compared to like living in Siargao, for example, or other kind of province areas. But I've enjoyed BGC a lot more than I did when I first came 2 years ago, I think. I was living in Mandaluyong at the time, and it's a lot different there. And for me, what a lot of people don't really see on social media and YouTube and everything is like I spend a lot of time editing. Like basically my entire week is just me sitting at home editing. So then BGC is great for me because when I need a recharge, when I need to go outside, just go for a walk, like head to the gym, it's like just all there, and I don't need to think about like getting a Grab somewhere or whatever, and it's just easy to kind of reach everything by foot.
Exactly, and it's a very walkable city, and the scenery is nice. It's wide streets. You're not gonna get hit by a car or a tricy. So, like, I can imagine you're cooped up all day in the house,
Yeah.
and when you want to go for a walk, it's a lot different going for a walk in BGC versus like crowded.
Yeah, and also in Mandaluyong, I was living right next to like a jeepney station. So when I was going for a run, like I was just like inhaling the fumes, and I was like getting shortness of breath like immediately, and I was like, how is this like a thing, you know? But,
right.
Yeah.
Wow. So now transitioning more into your experience with the locals in the Philippines, how would you say that you get treated by locals in the Philippines in your experience?
I would say overall, like the general kind of treatment is nice. It's what you hear on social media, what you see everywhere, that the Philippines are a super kind, super welcoming, super warm country. But obviously, as every country does, there are ups and downs, like benefits and drawbacks, every culture, every country, and that's what makes things interesting, you know? It's not like any country is perfect, so it's that's what keeps it interesting. And yeah, I guess here in the Philippines, sometimes when I'm like walking on the street and like I'm like maybe in a bad mood, let's say on a certain day, like you have like things that just like trigger you, you know? Like when people call me Justin Bieber, like every time, like I will walk into a cafe and they'll turn on Justin Bieber music, or
that's obnoxious.
And if you're like, yeah, exactly, that's the correct word. Of course, I don't want to play a victim because it's not really that bad. Like, let's be real here. There are like people who face real kind of problems, but obviously it's still something that like slightly annoys you, and it's like
I can imagine
just a kind of, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's actually my next question is like, have you had any experience with the negative experiences with the locals here?
Of course. Like, I think it would be a pretty big lie if you say that you haven't. Like, you experience negative like interactions everywhere in the world. It's not like any country is like perfect. So for the Philippines, I recently did a video in Quiapo market. And there was one individual that was like, so he asked us where we were all from. And I said, oh, I'm from Germany. And he started Hitler saluting me.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's different. So that was one interaction, for example. And then, of course, there's also always that difference in culture. You know, like if you're standing next to someone at the red light and it's like a group of people, they're like, really, really direct towards you. But obviously, that's also the cultural differences. Like in Europe, you would never, like, you're almost afraid to show interest in somebody
it's actually
in public.
That's really interesting, right? Because the Philippines is seen as like a very conservative country, at least when it comes to like dating standards here. But I don't know if it's just that for that demographic of people. But yeah, that I have seen that like, even in Europe, you don't really display that much interest.
Yeah, it's like, you know when somebody's like talking about you kind of that blatantly.
I was gonna say, like, I get a lot of attention from those guys everywhere I go, like pretty often. So with me getting attention, I was like, you a model here in the Philippines, you know, clearly foreign. I'm like, you must not be able to walk anywhere without people.
And
you know.
obviously it's as with everything, like if you're in a good mood, then everything is great and you're like fine with tolerating it. But if you've just like had a terrible day and then like you get this and you're like, oh, just stop. Like, you know, I have nothing against gay people or anything like that. It's just the way that it sometimes is, you know, like it's a bit too much for me personally, but like,
Right, and so that leads me into my next question. Do you have any more interesting interactions or experiences with locals in the Philippines?
Positive or negative, both?
It could be both.
Okay. I think one really interesting or cool thing to see, I'd say, was in Palawan, in El Nido. We went on this trip called Tao Tour. It's like you take a boat and you go from island to island and you stay on this boat for 5 days, sleep on the islands. There's no internet, like there's no electricity. It's very remote. So the people that you're on the boat with are pretty close at the end. So we did this tour as a family, like my family and I. And to see the like boat crew of like, they're obviously all Filipinos, and they are like what I imagine to be the raw like Filipino, you know, like they were like unbelievably strong, like super cool, like kind of like a really cool crew, and to see that was like super cool. And they were catching fish with like just a rope, and like it was very impressive, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, you really got the authentic Philippine experience there. No internet or anything, and you're out in the province.
Yeah, and you're sleeping in like these wooden kind of tents in a way with a mosquito net. That's it.
Wow.
And like it's super cool. I would highly recommend it actually.
I'm curious, how much did that tour cost for 5 days?
I don't know, to be honest, because I was like 16, 17.
Oh, okay.
So my parents paid for it, but yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you went to Quiapo, which is pretty much like so many different street food vendors and people selling stuff all over the place, very chaotic, but it's like the real authentic Manila experience. That brings me to the question of, what's your thoughts on Filipino street food?
So I'm vegetarian, I'd like to preface that. So usually I've been vegetarian for almost 3 years, 2.5 I'd say. And so I did an exception for this video because I wanted to get the full culture of the Philippines and kind of give it a go, try it. And to be honest, I don't know, it was just a blend of everything coming together, like trying meat again for the first time in months.
Wow.
And then also the Filipino street food is pretty crazy, some of it. Like I didn't try balut. I said I would if I reach 100K, which is coming closer at incredible speeds. And now I'm like, damn, why didn't I say 200?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of it is really nice. Like I really like the scallops, the dynamite, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And
is that street food? Scallops?
They're like on a stick and then...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
And then, yeah, but some of them, like, I must say weren't my favorite, like kwek.
Okay.
But to be fair, in that video, a lot of people were commenting that I ate it wrong because they gave it to me without a sauce or vinegar, I guess. So it was a bit bland. And also, like, you guys need to stop, like, having everything just swim in oil. Like, I was, like, mind blown by that.
Did you mention that in your video?
No, I didn't.
Because I was curious, like, if you did say that in your video, I wonder what kind of comments you would have gotten. You probably would have gotten a lot of hate.
Yeah, but it's not even the, like I mean, in the second place we went to, which was Lucky Charm Mall or something. It's like next to the, like next to Chinatown.
Yeah.
There it was different because they put your food into the oil like just when you ordered it, right? So they put it in, took it out when it's ready, and it's like, it's all right. That's kind of fine, you know?
Right.
But the standard thing you see here on the streets is that they have this huge bucket of not olive oil probably, some kind of oil.
Canola oil, vegetable oil,
yeah, so they have some kind of oil, and you have all these things just swimming in it, you know?
Right.
And it's just not healthy. That's the... But I mean, that's my personal opinion, of course.
No, yeah, I mean, I totally get it. I think that's something I commonly hear with expats.
Okay.
Like some of them, they love Filipino food, but then also like being from the West, they also, there's a large demographic that's like, it's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
And obviously it is. Like, I've probably, in the span of living here 4 years, I've known 3 or 4 guys who died that was close to our family because like, they were constantly eating Filipino street food. And it's just so bad for you. And it's all from the same issue, heart issues.
For me, it's like, I mean, I'm pretty like, I'd like to say healthy in my my diet, my working out habits, everything.
You have to be, it's your profession.
Yeah, so. And I mean, that's questionable, but I like to...
In today's age, you don't need to.
I mean, also because the modeling industry is also not healthy. It's like a weird situation now where both unhealthy ends of the spectrum are glorified and the actual healthy, which is like somewhere in between, is like kind of not really depicted.
Right.
For me, it was always, my view on the topic was always that you should promote a healthy lifestyle rather than a certain body type.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I try to do. I try to eat healthy. I try to eat clean, whole foods. I mean, I eat vegetarian food most of the time. And then, do my exercise, do sports.
Nice, nice.
So then obviously having that as your norm, trying this oil soaked bread ball, I don't know. Exactly. With this duck egg on the inside. Right. It's quack, right?
Quack,
yeah.
Yes.
And it was a bit of a different thing for my stomach as well. So I had like a little bit of a reaction, but nothing major, but
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And then my next question is, how does your lifestyle back in Europe compare to living in the Philippines?
Well, Europe is pretty broad, right?
Yeah.
So living in my small hometown is very different from living in Frankfurt or living in England as well. Like, it's very, very different lifestyles. One thing that is very different here in the Philippines is the weather, like the kind of seasons as well. Like in Europe, your lifestyle is very seasonal. So in winter, you cannot do the same habits, same kind of routine that you do in summer, which is like pretty obvious, because if you wake up at the same time in summer and in winter, one will be super dark and you can't like possibly go outside. It's like you would just like hate it.
Yeah.
And then in summer it's amazing, beautiful, and like so that's one of the main things here, is that you can have a more kind of consistent routine. Like you have the rain seasons, but like it's still kind of staying within the same kind of limits, you know?
Exactly.
And so I'd say that's probably the biggest difference.
Seasons, yeah.
And it's like with everywhere, like in England, for example, I had 3 months of non-stop cold and rain when I first arrived. So I could go outside, but you didn't really want to, you know? And like that bothered me a lot, because I'm an outdoor person. I'm very active, like to do sports. And so when it's raining, it makes it more difficult to find other people to do things with, because nobody wants to go outside. So if you're like, oh, let's go play tennis, and then it's raining, nobody will come, you know?
It's just like in England, it's so gloomy. And I remember, like, I hope you don't mind me sharing, but like when we had our coffee the other day, you were saying like living in England, you were depressed because just the lifestyle there, and you were separated from, we're gonna get to it, but your girlfriend was here in the Philippines at the time. She
was,
yeah. And even like living in Chicago, the seasons is like, it's so extreme there in the busy city. It's, you know, one day the weather's forecasted that it's gonna snow, but then it's raining. The next day they say it's gonna snow, but then it rains.
Yeah.
And
unpredictable.
It's it gets so extremely cold there as well, with the lake effect that we have. So having a consistent routine is something I often overlook living in the Philippines, because like I can expect every day it's gonna be hot and humid. I know what to expect.
Yeah.
Actually though, today it's beautiful though, so it's nice.
It's been nice actually recently.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was like sitting at home editing, so as per usual. And I was looking outside and it was raining and stuff, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised, because usually when it's sunny I don't want to be inside. So I want to be going out, like playing tennis, paddle, playing football. So I was quite okay with it raining, because I need to get some stuff done, you know?
It's the best, like when you have to stay in and work, and then you have these rainy days in Manila. It's like, okay, now I want to stay in. So.
Yeah, you know, the thunderstorms, that's like best editing environment you could ask for.
Exactly. So you're living in BGC right now. What exactly made you to choose to live in BGC? Because when you were going to school here, you were living in Alabang, correct?
Yes, that's true.
What made you choose to be in BGC?
Well, actually, I mentioned earlier that my first few months in the Philippines weren't very easy. And a part of that, I think, was the commute. So I was living in Alabang, going to school here in Taguig. So every morning I was spending 1 hour, 2 hours in the bus. And then in the evening, after my football training or track and field training, I would go into the bus at like prime rush hour.
Oh man.
And then sometimes, like we had one time where we arrived 6 hours after we left. And that's like ridiculous.
6 hours.
So we didn't take the Skyway with the bus. So we were just stuck.
Yeah.
Like, and our parents and families were all calling the bus and like crazy stuff. Yeah. So that's one thing I knew I didn't want. And I knew that a lot of my life would be here in BGC. So knowing that, I kind of wanted to stay in Manila, in the city. And then having lived in Mandaluyong before, I knew that whilst it's still close to like all the bars, coffee shops, clubs, everything here, it's still like a commute, you know?
Exactly.
And now I'm living in BGC. I like doing things by foot anyways.
Yeah.
So everything is walkable. There are like parks to go to, like coffee shops to edit in. Like if you need a bit of a kind of distraction during the day, you can go somewhere and do something.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's probably the big
I know like both of us, we both love living in BGC as compared to like the rest of the Philippines. Of course, we spend like, you know, maybe a week in Siargao, and you kind of need that if you're always in BGC because it's refreshing. But even the other day we were talking with my friend and he was like, you guys should move to Makati. And although Makati is a beautiful place, like you and I both agreed, we're like, even if we could get cheaper square meters, price per square meter, a bigger place, we still would live in BGC.
Yeah, especially at the moment. I mean, to be honest, when I went to Siargao, I did kind of start reconsidering all this because I think Siargao is like amazing.
Yeah.
And it's very different from everywhere else. So I was considering going there for a few months, but at the moment I still have my apartment here, so I'll live that out and then see afterwards where life takes me, kind of.
Yeah, we're probably not going to see any more Manila vlogs coming up. You'll be in Siargao.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool place, especially for content as well. Like you can do a lot more interesting stuff, and at least interesting for me. Of course, it's always different for everyone. I know there are a lot of people who enjoy Manila for vlogging, and for travel content, it's obviously better if you go somewhere where it's like, where you have the beaches, where you have kind of island hopping, diving, surfing, all this stuff.
For sure.
And also for editing, it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, editing in a cafe in Siargao, we did that. It's like, it makes the whole experience so much easier because it's excruciating doing that in a condo and like for 4 or 5 hours.
Plus, like in Siargao, you have that kind of down-to-earth vibe. I don't know how else to explain it, and I really like the people there. And
yeah. So now, can you break down, if you don't mind, can you break down your cost of living and monthly expenses in BGC Philippines?
Actually, I did a video on that.
Okay.
But it's like roughly, I'd say 50K a month. So that's what I spend usually. Keeping in mind that basically everything I eat, I cook at home. So because I want to know what's in my food, I want to make sure it's healthy. I want to like
it's not
keep
my oil.
For example. No, but I'm also obviously working on my health and my body and my fitness lifestyle. So I cook everything. So that's a big expense saver because usually the groceries are less expensive than eating in a restaurant. Like, especially here in BGC, the restaurants are like quite high priced. So if I eat like ramen or something, it's like 1,300 pesos. That's for one meal, right?
Yeah, like $26.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
sorry, you said 50,000 a month? Wow, so like $1,000 a month to live in BGC.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that's including like rent, groceries, Wi-Fi, bills.
How much is your rent then?
35K.
35.
But I share it with my girlfriend, so.
I see. So it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That helps if you live
I'm
here
sure that
too.
that's a big like expense that really helps. Because you know, when most expats move to BGC, and I've talked with a lot that live in my condo and around the city, they're usually spending like $3,000 upwards.
Wow. Okay.
But then again, like we're a lot younger.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the same kind of needs as well.
Right.
Like, I think I'm quite cheap. I can live cheap. I learned that in England.
As a uni student?
Yeah, as a uni student, I wasn't really like, yeah, so I mean, at the end of the month, you know, you had to live off of like a £1 meal.
Right.
And, like you were like eating.
That kind of answers my question, because I was going to ask, what did your expenses in England compared to living in the Philippines?
So to be honest, like I noticed that I spend almost the same amount in England as I do here. And that's because the groceries there are actually cheaper. Like, especially for the stuff that I buy and the stuff that I eat and cook. I mean, broccoli here, for example, is like so expensive. And then in England, for example, it would be way cheaper. So the stuff that I eat is obviously, I don't know, more European food kind of.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I try cooking. But yeah, so I spend a lot more on my apartment in Europe. So in England, I knew people that were spending £1,200 on their apartment every month. One bedroom? Yeah, one bedroom.
Okay. One
bedroom with kitchen and bathroom. So that's wild. I didn't spend that much. I spent, I think, £600 for a 2-bedroom. I was sharing it with a flatmate. We were sharing the kitchen and the toilet. Yeah, but the quality of life is very different, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I can imagine, you know, even I've seen it, like natural organic foods is so high priced here in the Philippines. Like if you go to the US, it's still pretty high priced. Europe, I believe, like prices are significantly lower.
Yeah, especially if you go to the right supermarkets.
Exactly.
I mean, there are huge differences if you shop at, I don't know, Aldi, compared to like, I don't know, Sainsbury's or Waitrose. Like it's totally different. Like Aldi is like my go-to in Europe. It's like, you know, you will get relatively okay quality.
Right.
And then the prices are amazing.
For sure, for sure. And so you mentioned that you spent some time in Siargao. Obviously, the cost of living in the province is going to be a little bit different than living in Manila. So how long were you in Siargao for, and how much did you spend during that time?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's very different. You have to keep in mind that when you're living somewhere, you find all the best places to eat, buy food.
You were on vacation.
I was on vacation there, so it's a very different thing. I think in Siargao, I don't even know, because it's like, we were in 3 there, so it was my mom, my girlfriend, and I. So everyone was kind of paying for different things. My mom paid for a lot as well. So maybe like 20 to 30K for 1 week.
For a week? Okay.
Yeah, that's including the flights as well.
Yeah.
So
how about accommodation? Like, where did you guys stay there?
So the first 2 nights we stayed at an Airbnb, and then after that we stayed in kind of like a hotel that had like a, so it had 2 sections. One was a hotel, one was like a backpackers like hostel. And yeah, that's where we were staying.
Was that Happiness?
Yeah, Happiness.
Oh, you stayed at Happiness?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We ate there almost every day because like the Middle Eastern food there is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They had a big buffet at the end.
Yeah. Of
Israeli food.
Yeah.
And it was so good.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to try what's that restaurant right across from Happiness? Goodies?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that place is great too.
Goodies. Yeah. We also ate at Bravo.
Bravo is great.
It's nice. Then there's one Thai place, I forgot the name.
Yeah. But yeah, and there's an Italian, like actually I was shocked by the food scene in Siargao.
And it's healthy food as well.
Oh, so healthy there, all natural, and it's like a lot of it's foreign owned, expat owned.
Yeah.
So I think that's why like the quality is great, the food's healthy, the ingredients are sourced like from great places. So yeah, and my next question is more so transitioning into your work experience in the Philippines.
Okay.
First, before I ask that, would you say you're more in the Philippines for work or for just being in the country for your lifestyle?
Definitely for the lifestyle. I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of just trying things,
right.
If that makes sense. So I graduated in June.
Okay.
And now I kind of gave myself a year to try YouTube and float a bit, like not sure what I want to do yet. So I decided, why not move to the Philippines for a year and see what blossoms in a way. Nice. And yeah, I have like a huge like kind of plan for myself, which is like very broad, and it's very difficult for me to like say, okay, I'll focus on this alone. And that's kind of what I'm trying now to do with YouTube. So I'm kind of here in the Philippines mainly because it's like, it's easy with a visa situation.
For sure.
Also for my girlfriend, she's from Belarus. So visas are quite a big issue for them.
Yes.
So yeah, visa is one of the reasons. I love the country. The islands, everything, you know, like.
Yeah.
And that's also actually another thing I forgot to mention earlier with why I chose to live in Manila, or not the provinces, is because you're closer to the airports and you can easily go fly to an island and kind of come back. So it's like.
Yeah, it's like 1 hour flight, very easy. Yeah.
And also I was living out of my suitcase for ages. So like that's something with modeling, right? Like you're always traveling. So you have 3 months in one country, then you go to the next, then you go to the next. You're always living out of your suitcase, and I hated it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anywhere to leave all your stuff. Like when you go somewhere, you have to take everything.
Right.
Like just imagine taking your whole wardrobe every time, you know, like
as a model too, that's
and so that's something I disliked. So I knew that I wanted a home base, even if I'm traveling a lot. So the goal is now actually to travel more around the Philippines, explore the north, the south, everything.
Yeah, I mean, would you still have a home base, or do you think you're gonna go back to like, you know, just picking up your bags and I'll be here for 2-3 months, here for the next month?
I think I'll still have a home base.
Okay.
I really liked having a place that I can come back to, because you know where your gym is, you know where your groceries are. I mean, I'm quite used to starting over. I've done it my whole life, right? You know your kind of mental list of the things that you want to get done in the first week living in a new country.
Right.
But it's an effort, you know, like you need to learn like all the new kind of rules that apply.
Yeah, for sure.
And here I've got that, like I know where everything is. I know not to go to the marketplace for groceries, you know. Those are the mistakes that you make at the beginning.
Absolutely.
When you're just moving somewhere. So now I know it's just for emergencies. You know?
So you mentioned that you're living with your girlfriend here.
Yeah.
So is your girlfriend here for work as well?
So she's like working in graphic design. So UI, UX and graphic design. So she's kind of flexible. She does most of her work remotely, so it can be done from anywhere.
Okay.
And then she's also doing modeling on the side. But both of us are like trying to move away from that a little bit.
From modeling. So yeah, I mean, we were talking about it the other day where you're trying to transition more so into YouTube as your main focus as opposed to modeling. So yeah, and I think YouTube's a great place for that because views are going pretty well. Your channel has grown exponentially. So I mean, when I first
for now
for now, I mean, but I see it continuing to go up. When I first reached out to you, you're at like 25K views, something like that, and then here we are. We finally got in the podcast and 35K.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's like that with social media, especially nowadays. Like the algorithm can pick you up 1 month and just like grow you.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
And then like the next month you can grow not at all. You know, like I've had it too many times to just kind of sit back and relax now. I kind of just want to keep going. Like try to not look at the numbers and keep pushing. And I mean, obviously the numbers are nice.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that there are people appreciating what you do, and I mean, it helps with kind of planning the future as well. Like, you don't want to keep doing something that's not going to pay off. So,
yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of the main reason that I found you and I reached out to you is because I saw your finally moving to Manila video.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the first videos I'd say in recent months that blew up. And
yeah, I had one beforehand that was like a day in the life of a model.
Yeah.
And then I went to Italy and Europe. And then those videos were like a bit less again.
Right.
And then I came back and I
So then like when you were in Manila, my first impression of you actually was like, I saw the video, and by the way, for full disclosure, I said in the video I saw you as competition. I do not at all. Every time I see a BGC vlogger or something like that, I'm like, come on, let's meet up, let's kick it, and let's get some coffee or something. So not at all. But when my first impression of you is like, is this another like you know, big foreign vlogger like Merjum Vlogs? You know, like where can I meet this guy? So I thought you were like a really big vlogger, and then I'm like, oh, you're actually relatively new to making content in the Philippines. You've done it in the past, but you're back in Manila. I saw you had a long stream of European videos, but now you're back to niching in Manila. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, how cool. I mean, I gotta reach out to this guy. And so I'm assuming if that landed on my page and that's over almost 200,000 views, it's gotta have landed on a lot of my viewers and my audience page. So they've probably seen you. They probably recognize you from a few of your videos. And that leads me to the question of, what's some things that goes on behind the scenes in your channel that you don't really show up front on camera?
I mean, I think we've talked about it already quite a bit in this podcast, but something that doesn't really come across in the videos is that my videos take a lot of editing. So I know there are a lot of Filipino vloggers or foreign vloggers in the Philippines that do daily vlogs, that do unbelievable amounts of content, pushing out like a video every day, and like for me that's not the case. I try to take my time with my videos. I hope that my subscribers kind of appreciate that as well, because I don't want to just put out content that I'm not really proud of because I didn't get the chance to edit that little bit extra and make sure that the music fits and make sure that everything is a cool story and that it's, I mean, my videos aren't long either. Usually they're like 8 to 12 minutes and yeah, so that they're digestible, you don't get bored. That's my attempt at least. Of course, it's up to everyone to decide for themselves.
Clearly it shows that people have been enjoying it lately.
Yeah, so I'd say that's a massive aspect, because if I'm filming 1 day a week and then editing it, you only see that 1 day, right? So when I'm not, or when it's not in the videos, it's me editing, me working out. Like I try to do a lot of kind of work-life balance as well. I try to keep productive, but at the same time stay healthy, fit, make sure that I call my family every week, you know, like try to kind of build up the way I want to live in the future. So hopefully when the YouTube channel is successful, or whatever entrepreneurship ideas come, whenever that's successful, I want to have already like implemented a system where I can be balanced, you know, where I have that balance of being able to spend time with my girlfriend, go out with friends, play my sports, do workouts, and not kind of like build up this unsustainable kind of business in a way YouTube is a business, right? It is. So it's like you built up this system which works, but it's very, very slim, you know, it's like just that part of your life. I want to have a full life, like, which is complete and like allows me to sustainably continue doing that, you know. And so I'm right now, for example, I noticed that I'm editing a lot, so I decided that I want to do more working out again. So it's like a constant adjustment and management of keeping that work-life balance. And I think that's something actually that's underprioritized here in the Philippines, underprioritized in Europe, everywhere in the world actually, is this this balance, you know. Like I know a lot of people in Europe, a lot of my uni friends, they spend days just studying. Of course it's normal, but like at the same time you have to go get your fresh air, do some sports that helps you as well perform, right? Yeah, so
for sure. I mean, we were talking about it earlier where, and I don't talk about this on channel, but like, because it's a podcast, we're just having a normal conversation. When the beginning of my channel, like the early stages, I mentioned that I hired an editor and he was making videos like 6 days a week, and I was filming 6 days, 7 days a week. And like in the beginning of growing a channel, that's not what a lot of creators talk about, is that balance is one of the hardest things to keep.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a business, exactly. Like YouTube is often seen as like, oh, you're just doing YouTube. It's just kind of brushed off by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor. Fair enough. But it's like when you get into this space, it's not easy because it's definitely a grind. And I could definitely say in my experience of 2 years being on YouTube that there was no balance whatsoever. It was either I was working or I was kind of with family, but I had my mind on YouTube.
Yeah, and something that's kind of a big thing for me recently as well is like with some of the videos blowing up, is that you're working when you're not really, like when you don't feel like that you're working, you know? So I'll be replying to comments and like takes an hour of my day or something out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you're just replying to comments and then you're like, wait, I didn't even realize that I was working, you know, like,
right.
And it's all work, it's all part of the job. You do it in your off time, you do it like whenever you have the time really. And it's kind of a job that's different to other jobs, you know?
Yeah. It's cheesy, but it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's always like that with owning your own business.
Oh yeah.
I have a lot of friends that are business owners. They never stop, you know. It's always.
I kind of had a hard time about it because being like, I guess, quote unquote, a business owner here in the Philippines with the channel, you'll find that in Philippine culture, if you start to develop a circle of Filipino friends, that socializing is more so prioritized often compared to like work. So, and that makes sense. Like, relationships is built upon socializing. So when I found that I was like making friends here and my life is good, the first 2 years here, I was like, I hate it. But then I started making friends. I'm like, I love it. And I developed these connections and they're like, wait, Evan, you're always working. You're always, you know, out, you know, doing the podcast. And I'm like, and then it causes a hindrance upon, it could cause a hindrance upon friendships, which makes sense.
Of course.
Have you experienced that at all? I mean, with being in YouTube or?
So YouTube itself, not really. Because, yeah, I don't know why. I'm kind of like, at the moment, I don't do much social stuff.
Yeah.
That's an aspect of my balance, I'd say, that's lacking at the moment, because when you move to a new country, you have less friends. It's just the way it's meant.
Right.
But I would say with modeling, it has been the case. Like, when I travel somewhere and then come back, it's not like the people, your friends, they didn't stay the same, you know? It's like, I did this year abroad. So in university, all my friends moved on 1 year.
Yeah.
And some people graduated, some people like started jobs, some people just simply changed their habits, their lifestyles and everything. So it ended up being that I come back and you don't have the same connections anymore because you're different, they're different, like it's just not the same. So I had that with modeling, not so much with YouTube because
I was gonna ask, what is the modeling industry like in the Philippines?
The modeling industry here is very, very fluctuating, I'd say. It's like variable. Like some months you have a lot of jobs, some months you don't. I guess it's obviously dependent on the seasons, like a beginning of the year, like maybe March, April, you have all the summer campaigns. And then recently you had, or now actually you have the Christmas campaigns. So
it fluctuates.
It fluctuates a lot, and that's something I don't appreciate about it. Like, it's not my favorite. The fact that you don't know when your next job is, you can't really do much about it as much as you can work out and stay in shape. Ultimately it's up to the client if they like your look or not. It's not something you can change. You know, if you're a football player, you can train harder. You know your passing is not good, you train your passing, right?
Right.
And in modeling, it's like, they don't like your face. What are you gonna do?
Right.
You know, it's like
it's entirely dependent on
it's like something you can't change, or you can, maybe with plastic surgery.
But you're not going that route.
But that's not something I would like to do. And also, that then changes for a different client because it's opinion-based as well. So one client might like your nose and the other doesn't. So
natural.
If you change your nose, then the next client might not like it, and it's very...
I can see why you're transitioning out of that industry.
Yeah, and I mean, I got my degree. Maybe I will do something with that as well in the future. So for now, I'm just kind of floating a bit.
Yeah, and I imagine that you had some experience witnessing, or at least being around, like doing business or seeing people do business in Europe, and that, for me, I could see is very different than doing business in the Philippines, and you've been around that scene here. Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of an inside look of what business is like, the ups and downs of it, little intricacies, the way that you communicate with the locals? Like, how is it different than being in a Western environment?
So, I think one of the biggest differences is that here it tends to be, how do I put this? Like, business kind of comes from friendships. Yeah. If that makes sense. So you're friends before you're business partners in a way. So I found that a lot of the business here is done through kind of connecting with people. You become like, you kind of like each other, and then you're like, okay, fine, let's see how we can combine, you know, in a way. And in Europe, I mean, that's very warm. In Europe, sometimes it can be very like cold-blooded, like professional, like for sure. There's no emotional like relationship engagement at all. So that's something that obviously you have to be prepared for. Because if you're not used to, I don't know, needing to get a coffee with whoever you're trying to get to like do business with, and you're just kind of like direct forward, it's very different here. And some people might not be used to that, I think. Yeah, absolutely. I can say the same, like being from the US. We do business very differently. It's very like cold. It could be cold-blooded in a way. It could be like very direct. And for me, that's traditional of how you go about, you know, transacting with others. But I did notice here it is more social based. Yeah. Where it's like, if I don't like you here in the Philippines, we're not going to work together, even if we could make a ton of money. Yeah. In the US, I could hate your guts, but we'll make money. I love you now. Or not even. You just you work together. Period. Yeah, exactly. You know, like I've had a lot of like, I don't know, like interactions where it's like you know what you're at. You know, like you feel that the other end is like really like, this is just business. You know, it's emotions detached. It's like completely. This is work. Like, I don't care who you are. Yeah. You know, and it's very different here, obviously. And you have the differences in culture. And so it's something you need to like kind of get used to. I could say it's a good thing actually to how it's done in the West, because I notice here, like it's so, people get their feelings really hurt when doing business. And like you step over each other's toes because it becomes a little too personal with how your connections are. It can be very personal. And then it becomes petty at that point. It can be good, it can be bad. Yeah. It has two sides to it, because on one hand, you have more loyalty here in the Philippines. Right. So if you do business with someone and you build up that emotional connection, you know that you can rely on them a little bit more. Whereas if you're in other cultures, not even just Western, like I noticed this in Korea as well, they're a lot more stone cold, like they will do what's best for them. That's it, you know, like, and I had the opposite experience here, you know, sometimes you have the other side helping you out, even though it's not really benefiting them, you know, it's like, it's neutral for them or whatever, they have to put in more effort or, but they do it because you have that emotional, like, kind of thing to fall back on. So it's like, it comes with both, obviously, benefits and drawbacks, like, everything. And my last question is, what is the hardest part about being an influencer in the Philippines? That's a good question. I mean, I'm relatively new to being somewhat of an influencer here. I would say something that's difficult overall with this space is that it takes a lot more time and effort than people think. Then for us, for example, our brand is like our face. So we are out there for people to judge. if one of us says something wrong in this interview, then it's personal, you know? If you own a kind of, I don't know, coffee shop, you're detached from the business. Whereas with influencers, you are the business. Your brand is you, you know? There's a certain personality kind of judgment going on when you're an influencer. And I think that's a pretty big difficulty, I'd say. When it comes to Philippines specifically, I think one of the big things is that you get immediately categorized. So being a foreigner that vlogs in the Philippines, you immediately get put into this box kind of, and it's very difficult to get out of it. Because, for example, my content is not food content per se, but I know that there are so many people, like I see it in the comments, that are like, you should do this, you should do that. And it's like just not what I want from my channel, right? So, and they enjoy watching it maybe, but I don't enjoy filming it. So.
But if you're in that space with the food vloggers, you have to do it like they do it.
Yeah.
If you're in that box, yeah, I see
exactly.
what you mean.
And it's like, if you're a foreigner in the Philippines, they tend to expect those types of videos.
Yeah, like.
When it's like not maybe something you're looking at. So that's something I've struggled with at the recently, especially because I want to do certain types of videos. Like I have my kind of goals, my kind of vision, and it doesn't align with kind of the vision that a lot of foreigners here in the Philippines have when they're doing their content.
Right.
So it's just about sticking to what you want to do, kind of. Yeah.
Well, that's what makes you unique, is that you have your own vision. And
yeah, exactly.
That's what's going to set you apart from every other vlogger and creator here. Well, Tim, it was a pleasure. It was nice to get an inside look of who you are behind camera.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it as well.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to be doing some more podcasts for the rest of this year, and we'll see you in the next video. God bless.